UBS building lobby. Howard Beale, bleached white by the glare of the camera lights, is obscured by the crush of cameras, reporters, security guards. Howard. Every day, 5 days a week for 15 years, I've been sitting behind that desk. The dispassionate pundit, Diana's apartment, bedroom. Diana, naked on the edge of her bed in a dark room, watches Howard Beale's impromptu press conference on television. Howard, on TV screen, reporting with seemly detachment the daily parade of lunacies that constitute the news. And also on the bed is a naked stud, who isn't really interested in the news. He is fondling, fingering, noodling, and nuzzling Diana with a clear intention of mounting her. Howard, on TV screen. Just once I wanted to say what I really felt. The young stud is getting around to nibbling Diana's breasts. Diana, watching the TV set with single-minded intensity. Knock it off, Arthur. UBS building. Thursday, September 25th, 9 a.m. Bright morning sunshine. Diana enters the building wearing a pantsuit and carrying a half-dozen scripts. UBS building lobby. Diana pauses at the newsstand to pick up the morning papers. She reads en route to the elevators. UBS building, 14th floor, 9:15 a.m. Diana whisks through the door of Department of Programming. Programming Department Common Room. Three secretaries are abuzz about last night's Howard Beale show as Diana crosses to her own office. Diana's secretary Helen scurries after her as Barbara Schleisinger comes out of her office carrying 4 scripts. Diana's outer office. Diana rummages among papers on top of Helen's desk as Helen enters. Diana. Did the overnight ratings come in yet? Helen. They're on your desk. Diana. Have you still got yesterday's overnights around? Helen. Shall I bring them in? Diana. Yeah. Diana's office. Sunlight blasts in as Diana moves to her own desk, scanning the front pages of the newspapers piled on her desk. She sits to study the ratings. Helen enters and hands the previous overnights to Diana. Helen exits as Schleisinger enters and sinks onto a chair with a sigh. Schleisinger. These are those 4 outlines submitted by Universal for an hour series. You needn't bother to read them. I'll tell them to you. The first one is set in a large Eastern law school, presumably Harvard. The series is irresistibly entitled The New Lawyers. The running characters are a crusty but benign ex-Supreme Court justice, presumably Oliver Wendell Holmes by way of Dr. Zorba. There is a beautiful girl graduate student and the local district attorney who is brilliant and sometimes cuts corners. Diana studying the overnights. Next one. Schleisinger. The second one is called The Amazon Squad. Diana studying the overnights. Lady Cops? Schleisinger. The running characters are a crusty but benign police lieutenant who's always getting heat from the commissioner, a hard-nosed, hard-drinking detective who thinks women belong in the kitchen, and a brilliant and beautiful young girl cop fighting the feminist battle on the force. Diana, now studying the front page of the Daily News. We're up to our ears in Lady Cop shows. Schleisinger. The next one is another investigative reporter show, a crusty but benign managing editor who's always getting heat from the publisher. Diana. The Arabs have decided to jack up the price of oil another 20%, and the CIA has been caught opening Senator Humphrey's mail. There's a civil war in Angola, another one in Beirut. New York City's facing default. They finally caught up with Patricia Hearst, and she flips the Daily News over so Barbara can read it. The whole front page of the Daily News is Howard Beale. Across Barbara Schleisinger, half standing to read the front page, which consists of a 3/4 page blow-up of Howard Beale topped by a 52-point black banner headline, Beale Fired. Diana. It was also a 2-column story on page 1 of the Times. Calls to the outer office. Helen, call Mr. Hackett's office. See if he can give me a few minutes this morning. UBS building, 15th floor, 10 a.m. Diana turning into Hackett's outer office. The secretary waves Diana straight into Hackett's office. Hackett sits unhappily at his desk, poring over memos from his station's relations department and reports from his sales department. Hackett, not bothering to look up. KTNS Kansas City refuses to carry our network news anymore unless Beale is taken off the air. Diana, dropping the sheet of paper on his desk. Did you see the overnights on the network news? It has an 8 in New York and a 9 in LA and a 27 share in both cities. Last night, Howard Beale went on the air and yelled bullshit for 2 minutes. And I can tell you right now that tonight's show will get a 30 share at least. I think we've lucked into something. Hackett. Well, for God's sake, are you suggesting we put that lunatic back on the air yelling bullshit? Diana. Yes, I think we should put Beale back on the air tonight and keep him on. Did you see the Times this morning? Did you see the news? We've got press coverage on this you couldn't buy for $1 million. Frank, that dumb show jumped 5 rating points in one night. Tonight's show has got to be at least 15. We just increased our audience by 20 or 30 million people in one night. You're not going to get something like this dumped in your lap for the rest of your days. And you just can't piss it away. Howard Beale got up there last night and said what every American feels, that he's tired of all the bullshit. He's articulating the popular rage. I want that show, Frank. I can turn that show into the biggest smash in television. Hackett. What do you mean you want that show? It's a news show. It's not your department. Diana. I see Howard Beale as a Latter-day Prophet, a magnificent messianic figure inveighing against the hypocrisies of our times. A strip Savonarola, Monday through Friday. I tell you, Frank, that could just go through the roof. And I'm talking about a $6 cost per 1,000 show. I'm talking about $130,000 minutes. Do you want to figure out the revenues of a strip show that sells for $100,000 a minute? One show like that could pull this whole network right out of the hole. Now, Frank, it's being handed to us on a plate. Let's not blow it. Hackett's intercom buzzes. Hackett on intercom. Yes? Tell him I'll be a few minutes. Clicks off, regards Diana. Let me think it over. Diana. Frank, let's not go to committee about this. It's 20 after 10 and we want Beale in that studio by 6:30. We don't want to lose the momentum. Hackett. For God's sake, Diana, we're talking about putting a manifestly irresponsible man on national television. I'd like to talk to legal affairs at least. And Herb Thackeray, and certainly Joe Donnelly in standards and practices. And you know I'm going eyeball to eyeball with Mr. Ruddy on this. If I'm going to the mat with Ruddy, I want to make sure of some of my ground. I'm the one whose ass is going on the line. I'll get back to you, Diana. Executive dining room, 12:20 p.m. In a large, empty room of white linened tables sit 5 men at a table with a spectacular view of Midtown Manhattan. The 5 are Frank Hackett, Nelson Cheney, General Counsel Walter Amundson, Standards and Practices Arthur Zangwill, and Joe Donnelly of Sales. Cheney, rising. I don't believe this. I don't believe the top brass of a national television network are sitting around their Caesar salads. Hackett. The top brass of a bankrupt national television network with projected losses of close to $150 million this year. Cheney. I don't care how bankrupt. You can't seriously be proposing, and the rest of us seriously considering, putting on a pornographic network news show. The FCC will kill us. Hackett. Sit down, Nelson. The FCC can't do anything except to wrap our knuckles. Cheney sits. Amundson. I don't even want to think about the litigious possibilities, Frank. We could be up to our ears in lawsuits. Cheney. The affiliates won't carry it. Hackett. The affiliates will kiss your ass if you can hand them a hit show. Cheney. The popular reaction. Hackett. We don't know the popular reaction. That's what we have to find out. Cheney, the New York Times. Hackett, the New York Times doesn't advertise on our network. Cheney stands. All I know is that this violates every canon of respectable broadcasting. Hackett, we're not a respectable network. We're a whorehouse network, and we have to take whatever we can get. Cheney, well, I don't want any part of it. I don't fancy myself the president of a whorehouse. Hackett, it's very commendable of you, Nelson. Now sit down. Your indignation has been duly recorded. You can always resign tomorrow. Cheney sits. Hackett, look, what in substance are we proposing? Merely to add editorial comment to our network news show. Brinkley, Severeid, and Reasoner all have their comments. So now Howard Beale will have his. I think we ought to give it a shot. Let's see what happens tonight. Donnelly, well, I don't want to be the Babylonian messenger who has to tell Max Schumacher about this. Hackett, flagging a waiter. Max Schumacher doesn't work at this network anymore. Mr. Ruddy fired him last night. To the waiter. A telephone, please. To his colleagues. Bob McDonough's running the news division now. A phone is put before Hackett, who picks it up and murmurs. Hackett. Bob McDonough in the news, please. Max's office, 1:40 p.m. Max is on the phone and cleaning out his desk and office. He piles his files into empty cartons everywhere. He skims through papers, talking. Max. I don't know, Dick. I might teach. I might write a book. Whatever the hell one does when one approaches the autumn of one's years. Howard Beale walks in carrying an 8x12 photo. Max, studying the photo. My God, is that me? Was I ever that young? On phone. Howard just showed me a picture of the whole Ed Murrow gang when I was at CBS. My God. Bob Trout, Harry Reasoner, Cronkite Hollenbeck. And that's you, Howard, right? I'll see you, Dick. Hangs up. Howard points at photo. You remember this kid? He's the kid I think you once sent out to interview Cleveland Amory on Vivisection. Max laughs. That's him. They both laugh. Milton Steinman pokes his head in. Steinman. What the hell's so funny? News Division Executive Offices, room 509. Bob McDonough, VP Network News and interim head of the division, enters. He looks distressed. People, as well as laughter and shouting, spill out of Max's office. Even secretaries share in the fun. McDonough wonders what the hell it's about and makes his way through the crush into Max's office. The room is full of news executives. Max, Howard, Harry Hunter, Walter Giannini, Michael Sandys, Milton Steinman, and young producers delighted to hear memories of Maverick TV days. Max. I jump out of bed in my pajamas. I grab my raincoat, run down the stairs, run out into the middle of the street, flag a cab. I jump in. I yell, take me to the middle of the George Washington Bridge. Howls of laughter. Max. The driver turns around. He says, don't do it, kid. You got your whole life ahead of you. The room rocks. Bob McDonough appears in the doorway. McDonough. Well, if you think that's funny, wait till you hear this. I've just come down from Frank Hackett's office, and he wants to put Howard back on the air tonight. Apparently, the ratings jumped 5 points last night, and he wants Howard to go back on and do his angry man thing. Steinman. What are you talking about? McDonough. I'm telling you, they want Howard to go on yelling bullshit. They want Howard to go on spontaneously letting out his anger. A latter-day prophet denouncing the hypocrisies of our times. Howard. Hey, that sounds pretty good. Max. Who's this they? McDonough. Hackett. Cheney was there, the legal affairs guy, and that girl from programming. Max. Christensen? What's she got to do with it? Giannini, in background. You're kidding, aren't you, Bob? McDonough. I'm not kidding. I told them we're running a news department down there, not a circus. And Howard Beale isn't a bearded lady. And if you think I'll go along with this bastardization of the news, you can have my resignation along with Max Schumacher's right now. And I think I'm speaking for Howard Beale and everybody else down there in news. Howard. Hold it, McDonough. That's my job you're turning down. I'll go nuts without some kind of work. What's wrong with being an angry prophet denouncing the hypocrisies of our times? What do you think, Max? Max. Do you want to be an angry prophet denouncing the hypocrisies of our times? Howard. Yeah, I think I'd like to be an angry prophet denouncing the hypocrisies of our times. Max. Then grab it. 5th floor corridor, 3 p.m. Mr. Reddy comes down the corridor toward room 509. A videotape man popping out of a room quickly halts. Videotape man respectfully. Afternoon, Mr. Reddy. Reddy. Good afternoon. He passes on towards room 509. Ruddy enters, as 6 secretaries pecking away at typewriters all pause in awe. Secretaries. Good afternoon, Mr. Ruddy. Good afternoon, Mr. Ruddy. Ruddy passes through to Max's outer office. Mitzi, Max's secretary, hums an acknowledgement. Mitzi. He's waiting for you, Mr. Ruddy. Ruddy. Thank you. He goes into Max's office. He closes the door. Ruddy. Nelson Cheney tells me Beale may actually go on the air this evening. Max. As far as I know, Howard's going to do it. Are you going to sit still for this, Ed? Ruddy. Takes a folded paper from an inside pocket. Yes, I think Hackett's overstepped himself. There's some kind of corporate maneuvering going on, Max. Hackett is clearly forcing a confrontation. That would account for his behavior at the stockholders' meeting. However, I think he's making a serious mistake with this Beale business. I suspect CCA will be upset by Hackett's presumptuousness. Certainly Mr. Jensen will. So I'm going to let Hackett have his head for a while. He just might lose it over this Beale business. Places the paper on Max's desk. I'd like you to reconsider your resignation. Moves to couch, sits, crosses his legs. I have to assume Hackett wouldn't take such steps without some support on the CCA board. I'll have to go directly to Mr. Jensen. When that happens, I'm going to need every friend I've got, and I certainly want Hackett's people in all the divisional positions, so I'd like you to stay on, Max. Max. Of course, Ed. Ruddy stands. Thank you, Max. He opens the door and leaves. Max's office, Wednesday, October 1st, 7 p.m. Max sits in an office lit only by his desk lamp watching the network news show starring Howard Beale on a console. Narrator. The initial response to the new Howard Beale was not auspicatory. The press was without exception hostile, and the industry reaction negative. The ratings for the Thursday and Friday show were both 14 and with a 37 share, but Monday's rating dropped 2 points, clearly suggesting the novelty had worn off. On the office console, the show comes to an end with the theme music, engulfing the sound as credits roll. Max clicks it off and sits glumly. He becomes aware of another presence in the room. Diana Christensen stands in the doorway in a white blouse and dark slacks, carrying her jacket and bag. Just in case we haven't noticed her beauty, we do now, as she stands framed in the doorway, backlit, suddenly sensuous, even voluptuous. Diana enters. Did you know there are a number of psychics working as licensed brokers on Wall Street? She sits, fishes a cigarette out of her purse. Some of them counsel their clients by use of tarot cards. They're all pretty successful, even in a bear market and selling short. I met one of them a couple of weeks ago and thought of doing a show around her. The Wayward Witch of Wall Street. Something like that. But, of course, if her tips were any good, she could wreck the market. So I called her this morning and asked her how she was on predicting the future. She said she was occasionally prescient. For example, she said, I just had a fleeting vision of you sitting in an office with a craggy, middle-aged man with whom you are or will be emotionally involved. So here I am. Max. She does all this with tarot cards? Diana. No. This one operates on parapsychology. She has trance-like episodes and feels things in her energy field. I think this lady can be very useful to you, Max. Max. In what way? Diana. Well, you put on news shows, and here's someone who can predict tomorrow's news for you. Her name, aptly enough, is Sybil. Sybil the Soothsayer. You could give her 2 minutes of trance and at the end of a Howard Beale show. Say, once a week Friday, which is suggestively occult, and she could oraculate. Then next week, everyone tunes in to see how good her predictions were. Max. Maybe she could do the weather. Diana smiles. Your network news show is going to need some help, Max, if it's going to hold. Beale doesn't do the angry man thing well at all. He's too kvetchy. He's being irascible. We want a prophet, not a curmudgeon. He should do more apocalyptic doom. I think you should take on a couple of writers to write some Jeremiads for him. I see you don't fancy my suggestions. Max. Hell, you're not being serious, are you? Diana. Oh, I'm serious. The fact is, I could make your Beale show the highest-rated news show on television if you'd let me have a crack at it. Max. What do you mean, have a crack at it? Diana. I'd like to program it for you. Develop it. I wouldn't interfere with the actual news, but TV is showbiz, Max. And even the news has to have a little showmanship. Max. My God, you are serious. Diana. I watched your 6 o'clock news today. It's straight tabloid. You had a minute and a half on that lady riding a bike naked in Central Park. On the other hand, you had less than a minute of hard national and international news. It was all sex scandal, brutal crime, sports, children with incurable diseases, and lost puppies. So I don't think I'll listen to any protestations of high standards of journalism. You're right down in the street soliciting audiences like the rest of us. All I'm saying is, if you're going to hustle, at least do it right. I'm going to bring this up at tomorrow's network meeting, but I don't like network hassles. And I was hoping you and I could work this out between us. That's why I'm here right now. Max sighs. And I was hoping you were looking for an emotional involvement with a craggy middle-aged man. Diana. I wouldn't rule that out entirely. They appraise each other for the possibilities of something more than a professional relationship. They're there. Max. Well, Diana, you bring all your ideas up at the meeting tomorrow. Because if you don't, I will. I think Howard is making a goddamn fool of himself, and so does everybody Howard and I know in this industry. It was a fluke. It didn't work. Tomorrow, Howard goes back to the old format, and this gutter depravity comes to an end. Diana smiles, stands. Okay. She leans to flick her ash into Max's ashtray. By the cone of light issuing from the desk lamp, it is nipple clear that she is braless. Max notes the assertive swells of her body. Diana moves languidly to the door to leave, but Max suddenly speaks. Max. I don't get it, Diana. You hung around till 7:30 and came all the way down here just to pitch a couple of loony showbiz ideas, when you know goddamn well I'd laugh you out of this office. I don't get it. What's your scam in this anyway? Diana moves back to the desk and crushes her cigarette in the tray. Diana. Max. My little visit here tonight was just a courtesy made out of respect for your stature in the industry. And because I've personally admired you ever since I was a kid majoring in speech at the University of Missouri. But sooner or later, with or without you, I'm going to take over your network news show, and I figured I might as well start tonight. Max. I think I once gave a lecture at the University of Missouri. Diana, I was in the audience. I had a terrible schoolgirl crush on you for a couple of months. She glides back to the doorway again. Max, listen, if we can get back for a moment to that gypsy who predicted all that about emotional involvements in middle-aged men, what are you doing for dinner tonight? Diana pauses in the doorway, then moves back to the telephone on the desk, taps out a number, waits for a moment. Diana, into phone. I can't make it tonight, love. Call me tomorrow. She returns the receiver to its cradle, looks at Max. Their eyes lock. Max, do you have any favorite restaurant? Diana, I eat anything. Max, son of a bitch, I get the feeling I'm being made. Diana, you sure are. Max, I better warn you, I don't do anything on the first date. Diana, we'll see. She moves for the door. Max stares down at his desk, then stands. Max to himself. Schmuck. What are you getting into? He sighs and flicks off his desk lamp. A restaurant. Max and Diana are finishing dinner. Max orders 2 coffees, black. Diana, plying away at ice cream. I was married for 4 years and pretended to be happy, and had 6 years of analysis and pretended to be sane. My husband ran off with his boyfriend, and I had an affair with my analyst. He told me I was the worst lay he had ever had. I can't tell you how many men have told me what a lousy lay I am. I apparently have a masculine temperament. I arouse quickly, consummate prematurely, and can't wait to get my clothes back on and get out of that bedroom. I seem to be inept at everything except my work. I'm goddamn good at my works, and so I confine myself to that. All I want out of life is a 30 share and a 20 rating. You're married, surely. Max, 25 years. I have a married daughter in Seattle who's 6 months pregnant and a younger girl who starts at Northwestern in January. Diana, well, Max, here we are. Middle-aged man reaffirming his middle-aged manhood and a terrified young woman with a father complex. What sort of script do you think we can make out of this? Max, terrified, are you? Diana pushes her ice cream away, regards him affably. Terrified out of my skull, man. I'm the hip generation, man. Right on. Cool, groovy. The greening of America, man. Remember all that? God, what humbugs we were. In my first year at college, I lived in a commune, dropped acid daily, joined 4 radical groups, and fucked myself silly on a bare wooden floor while somebody chanted Sufi surahs. I lost 6 weeks of my sophomore year because they put me away for trying to jump off the top floor of the administration building. I've been on the top floor ever since. Don't open any windows around me because I just might jump out. Am I scaring you off? A waiter brings the coffee. Max. No. The corridor gossip says you're Frank Hackett's backstage girl. Diana, sipping coffee, smiles. I'm not. Frank's a corporation man, body and soul. He has no loves, lusts, or allegiances that are not consummately directed towards becoming a CCA board member. So why should he bother with me? I'm not even a stockholder. Max, how about your loves, lusts, and allegiances? They smile at each other. Diana, is your wife in town? Max, yes. Diana, well, then we better go to my place. Howard Beale's bedroom. Howard is fast asleep in his empty, hushed room. Howard, suddenly. I can't hear you. You'll have to speak a little louder. He gets up on one elbow, eyes still closed, cocks his head as if he were listening to someone. Howard whispers with dread, his eyes open. Yes, I hear you. Yes. Yes. Camera dollies inexorably down to tight portrait close-up of Howard Beale in a state of beatitude. Howard, almost in audible awe. Why me? Louder. I said, why me? Tight close-up of Howard Beale. Howard with beatitude and serenity. Okay. Nightly News, Room 517. Max enters into the morning hum of activity. Phones ring. Harry Hunter, going over some wire releases with his head writer, looks up. Max. Howard in his office? Hunter nods. Harry, I'm killing this whole screwball angry prophet thing. We're going back to straight news as of tonight's show. Hunter. Okay. Max veers off for Network News Control Room. The clock says 6:29 and the control room staff are at their posts. Harry Hunter is on the phone. Hunter, muttering into phone. Max, I'm telling you, he's fine. He's been sharp all day. He's been funny as hell. He had everybody cracking up at the rundown meeting. I told him. On the show monitor, Howard Beale at his desk, awaiting his cue as he fingers his papers. The clock clicks to 6:30. The director murmurs into his mic. Howard looks out from his screen to his vast audience. Howard, on monitor. Last night, I was awakened from a fitful sleep shortly after 2 o'clock in the morning by a shrill, sibilant, faceless voice that was sitting in my rocking chair. I couldn't make it out at first in the dark bedroom. I said, I'm sorry, you'll have to talk a little louder. And the voice said to me, I want you to tell the people the truth. Not an easy thing to do because the people don't want to know the truth. I said, you're kidding. How the hell would I know what the truth is? But the voice said to me, don't worry about the truth. I'll put the words in your mouth. And I said, what is this, the burning bush? For God's sake, I'm not Moses. And the voice said to me, and I am not God. What's that got to do with it? Network News Control Room. Harry Hunter remains on phone as the control room staff sits staring at the monitor. Hunter on phone. What do you want me to do? Max's office. At his desk, his chin cupped in his right hand, Max stares at Howard on his office console. Max, sighing his resignation into the phone. Nothing. Howard on console. And the voice said to me, we're not talking about eternal truth or absolute truth or ultimate truth. We're talking about impermanent, transient, human truth. I don't expect you people to be capable of truth, but God damn it, you're at least capable of self-preservation. That's good enough. I want you to go out and tell the people to preserve themselves. Max on phone. Right now, I'm trying to remember the name of that psychiatrist that took care of him when his wife died. Network News Studio. Tight shot of Howard, his voice rising, his eyes glowing with fervor. Howard. And I said to the voice, why me? And the voice said, because you're on television, dummy. Diana's voice. Diana watches Howard on her console. Diana. Beautiful. Howard on console. You have 40 million Americans listening to you. After tonight's show, you could have 50 million. For Pete's sake, I don't expect you to walk the land in sackcloth and ashes preaching the Armageddon. You're on TV, man. Max's office. Max is no longer on the phone, but leafing through an address book. Howard on console. So I thought about it for a moment. Max punches in a phone number on his private line. Howard live. And then I said, okay. 5th floor corridor. Howard and Harry Hunter are followed by the rest of the control room staff as they march out of the stairway down the corridor to Nightly News, Room 517, and toward Howard's office while the crew disperse to their own desks to exchange comments with the Nightly News personnel still there. Howard walks straight as a ramrod, eyes uplifted, serene to the point of transcendence. He and Hunter go into Howard's office. Max is waiting on the couch. He stands. Max. Close the door, Harry. Hunter does so. Max. Howard, I'm taking you off the air. I called your psychiatrist. I think you're having a breakdown. Require treatment, and Dr. Sindel agrees. Howard, this is not a psychotic episode. It is a cleansing moment of clarity. I am imbued, Max. I am imbued with some special spirit. It's not a religious feeling at all. It is a shocking eruption of great electrical energy. I feel vivid and flashing, as if suddenly I had been plugged into some great cosmic electromagnetic field. I feel connected to all living things, to flowers, birds, to all the animals of the world, and even to some great unseen living force, what I think the Hindus call the prana. He stands rigid, his eyes staring mindlessly out, revealing the anguish of so transcendental a state. It is not a breakdown. I have never felt so orderly in my life. It is a shattering and beautiful sensation. It is the exalted flow of the space-time continuum, save that it is spaceless and timeless and of such loveliness. I feel on the verge of some great ultimate truth. He stares haggardly at Max. His breath comes with difficulty as he begins to shout. You will not take me off the air for now or for any other spaceless time. Howard promptly falls onto the floor into a dead swoon. Max, hurrying to his prostrate friend. Oh boy. Hunter, is he okay? Max bent over Howard. He's just fainted. I better get him back to my house again for the night. Help me get him up. A crash of thunder. Max's apartment, bedroom, night. Thunder crashes outside. Rain pelts against the windows of the dark room. Max and his wife Louise are fast asleep. Camera pans, dollies out of their bedroom and into living room. Howard sleeps on the living room sofa. Now he slowly sits up, then stands in his borrowed pajamas, goes to the hall closet, fetches a raincoat, unchains, unbolts, and unlocks the front door and goes out. New York, the East 60s, Wednesday, October 3rd, 7:30 a.m. Another crash and rumble of thunder. Rain pelts the streets. Max's apartment bedroom. Alarm clock buzzing. Mrs. Louise Schumacher, a handsome matron of 50, clicks it off and gets out of bed. Max turns over, sleeps on. Louise starts into the bathroom and goes out into back hallway, where she continues into living room. She looks concerned. The couch had been made up for a bed and now is rumpled but empty. She looks back up the hallway to the guest bedroom. The door is open, but nobody is there. She pads across the living room dining room area, poking her head into the kitchen. She pauses outside her daughter's closed bedroom door, opens it, looks in, closes it, then returns to the bedroom. Louise sits on Max's side of the bed and shakes him. Louise. Wake up, Max. Because Howard's gone. I'll make you some coffee. Max. Shit. She moves off as he slowly sits up. Frank Hackett's office. Hackett rages at Max, slumped in a chair. Diana and Herb Thackeray are also there. Hackett. What do you mean you don't know where he is? The son of a bitch is a hit, goddammit. Over 2,000 phone calls. Go down to the mailroom. As of this minute, over 14,000 telegrams. The response is sensational. Herb, tell him. Thackeray starts to tell him, but Hackett roars over him. Herb's phone hasn't stopped ringing. Every goddamn affiliate from Albuquerque to Sandusky. The response is sensational. The phone rings. Hackett seizes it. What? All right. He hangs up, snaps at Thackeray. It's your office, Herb. You better get back there. Thackeray exit. Hackett roars on. Hackett. Moldanian called me. Joe Donnelly called me. We've got a goddamn hit. Goddamn hit. Diana, show him the Times. We even got an editorial in the holy goddamn New York Times. A call to morality. That crazy son of a bitch Beale has caught on. So don't tell me you don't know where he is. Max roaring back. I don't know where he is. He may be jumping off a roof for all I know. The man is insane. He's no longer responsible for himself. He needs care and treatment, and all you grave robbers care about is that he's a hit. Diana. You know, Max, it's just possible that he isn't insane, that he is, in fact, imbued with some special spirit. Max. My God. I'm supposed to be the romantic. You're supposed to be the hard-bitten realist. Diana. All right. Howard Beale obviously fills a void. The audience out there obviously wants a profit, even a manufactured one, even if he's as mad as Moses. By tomorrow, he'll have a 50 share, maybe even a 60 share. Howard Beale is processed instant God, and right now it looks like he may just go over bigger than Mary Tyler Moore. Max. I'm not putting Howard back on the air. Diana. It's not your show anymore, Max. It's mine. Max. You're nuts. You're nuttier than Howard. Hackett. I gave her the shoe, Schumacher. I'm putting the network news show under programming. Mr. Ruddy has had a mild heart attack and is not taking calls. In his absence, I'm making all network decisions, including one I've been wanting to make a long time. You're fired. I want you out of this building by noon. I'll leave word with the security guards to throw you out if you're still here. Max. Well, let's just say, fuck you, Hackett. You want me out, you're going to have to drag me out kicking and screaming. And the whole news division will walk out kicking and screaming with me. Hackett. You think they're going to quit their jobs for you? Not in this recession, buddy. Max. When Reddy gets back, he'll have your ass. Hackett. I got a hit, Schumacher. And Reddy doesn't count anymore. He was hoping I'd fall on my face with this Beale show, but I didn't. It's a big, fat, big-titted hit. And I don't have to waffle around with Ruddy anymore. If he wants to take me up before the CCA board, let him. And do you think Ruddy's stupid enough to go to the CCA board and say, I'm taking our one-hit show off the air? And comes November 14, I'm going to be standing up there at the annual CCA Management Review meeting, and I'm going to announce projected earnings for this network for the first time in 5 years. And believe me, Mr. Jensen will be sitting there rocking back and forth in his little chair, and he's going to say, That's very good, Frank, keep it up. So don't have any illusions about who's running this network from now on. You're fired. I want you out of your office before noon, or I'll have you thrown out. Max to Diana. And you go along with this? Diana. Oh, Max, I told you I didn't want a network hassle over this. I told you I'd much rather work with the Beale show out just between the two of us. Max stands. Well, let's just say fuck you too, honey. To Hackett. Howard Beale may be my best friend. I'll go to court. I'll put him in a hospital before I let you exploit him like a carnival freak. Hackett. You get your psychiatrist and I'll get mine. Max, heading for the door. I'm going to spread this whole reeking business in every paper and on every network, independent group, and affiliated station in this country. I'm going to make a lot of noise about this. Hackett. Great! We need all the press we can get. Max exits. Hackett clicks his intercom. Hackett on intercom. Get me Mr. Cabell. To Diana. Something going on between you and Schumacher? Diana. Sighs. Not anymore. 6th Avenue, 6:40 p.m. night. Thunder crashes, rain lashes the street. Pedestrians struggle against the slashing rain. The streets gleam wetly. The heavy traffic heading uptown crushes and honks along, erratic enfilades of headlights in the shiny black streets. The entrance to the UBS building. Howard Beale wearing a coat over his pajamas, drenched to the skin, his gray mop plastered in streaks to his brow, hunched against the rain, climbs the steps and pushes the glass door at the entrance and goes into UBS building lobby. 2 security guards at the desk watch Howard pass. Security guard. How do you do, Mr. Beale? Howard stops, turns, stares haggardly at the security guard. Howard, mad as a loon. I have to make my witness. Security guard, agreeably. Sure thing, Mr. Beale. Howard plods off to the elevators. Network News Control Room. Behind the usual efficient activity stands Diana in the shadows. On the show monitor, Jack Snowden, Beale's replacement, has been doing the news straight. Snowden on monitor. Oil ministers of the OPEC nations meeting in Vienna still haven't decided how much more to increase the price of oil next Wednesday. Iran and some of the Arab states want to jack up the price by as much as 20%. Production assistant. 5 seconds. Technical director. 25 in Vienna. Director. And 2. Snowden on monitor. The Saudi Arabians are being more cautious. They just want a 10% increase. More on that story from Edward Fletcher in Vienna. All this overlap and is under a buzz on Harry Hunter's phone. Hunter on phone. Yeah? Okay. Hangs up. To Diana. He came in the building about 5 minutes ago. Production assistant. 10 seconds coming to 1. Diana, make sure he gets here. Tell Snowden when he comes in the studio to let him go on. Hunter to the stage manager. Did you get that, Paul? The stage manager nods, passes on the instruction to his AD. On the show monitor, we see footage of the OPEC Vienna meeting. Lots of Arab headdresses and bearded Levantine faces at conference tables, and we are hearing the voice of Edward Fletcher in Vienna. Fletcher on monitor. This has probably been the most divisive meeting the oil-producing states have ever had. The 13 nations of OPEC have still not been able to decide by how much to increase the price of oil. On the show monitor, the footage flicks to Sheikh Zaki Yamani being interviewed by a corps of correspondents. Fletcher, voice off. Saudi Arabian oil minister Sheikh Zaki Yamani flew to London yesterday for further consultations with his government. He returned to the Vienna meetings today. Nobody in the control room is paying attention to Yamani. They are watching the double bank of black and white monitors showing Howard Beale entering the studio, drenched, hunched, staring into his open space, and moving with single-minded purpose across the studio past cameras and crew to his desk, which is being vacated for him by Jack Snowden. The film clips of Yamani ends. Assistant director. Ready? 2. Director. Take 2. And suddenly the obsessed face of Howard Beale with unworldly fervor and red eyes, manifestly mad, fills the monitor screen. Howard, on monitor. I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the streets, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We know the air's unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. And we sit and watch our TVs while some local newscaster tells us today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We all know things are bad. Worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything's going crazy. So we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we live in gets smaller. And all we ask is, please, at least leave us alone in our own living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my hairdryer and my steel-belted radials, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. Another angle showing the rapt attention of the people in the control room, especially of Diana. Howard, I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the defense budget and the Russians and crime in the street. All I know is first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being, goddammit. My life has value. So I want you to get up now. I want you to get out of your chairs and go to the window right now. I want you to go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell. I want you to yell, I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore. Diana grabs Hunter's shoulder. How many stations does this go out live to? Hunter, 67. I know it goes out to Louisville and Atlanta, I think. Howard, on monitor. Get up from your chairs. Go to the window. Open it. Stick your head out and yell and keep yelling. Diana has already left the control room. Howard, on monitor. First, you've got to get mad. When you're mad enough, we'll figure out what to do about the depression. 15th floor elevator area. Diana bursts out of the elevator and strides down to the clot of executives and personnel blocking an open doorway. She pushes into Thackeray's office, Stations Relations. Herb Thackeray is on the phone, staring at Howard Beale on his wall monitor. His staff fill his and his secretary's offices. The assistant VP Stations Relations, a 32-year-old fellow named Ray Petofsky, is also on the phone. Another assistant VP is on another phone. Diana shouting to Thackeray, Whom are you talking to? Thackeray, WCGG Atlanta. Diana, are they yelling in Atlanta, Herb? Thackeray on phone. Are they yelling in Atlanta, Ted? Howard on console. And the inflation and the oil crisis. Petofsky holding phone. They're yelling in Baton Rouge. Diana grabs the phone from him. Diana handing phone back, exulting. Son of a bitch, we struck the mother lode. Max's apartment living room. Max, Louise, and their 17-year-old daughter Carolyn watched the network news show. Howard on the set. Stick your head out and yell. I want you to yell. I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take this anymore. Caroline gets up and heads for the window. Louise, where are you going? Caroline, I want to see if anybody's yelling. Howard on TV set. Right now. Get up. Go to your window. Caroline opens the window and looks out the rain-swept streets of the Upper East Side, the bulking anonymous apartment houses and occasional brownstones. It is thunderdark. A distant clap of thunder crashes somewhere off, and the lightning shatters the dank darkness. In the sudden hush following the thunder, a thin voice can be heard down the block. Thin voice off-screen. I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore. Howard on TV set. Open your window. Max joins his daughter at the window. Rain sprays against his face. Max's POV. He sees occasional windows open. Across from his apartment house, a man opens the front door of a brownstone. Man shouting, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take this anymore. Other shouts are heard. From the 23rd floor, Max sees the erratic landscape of Manhattan. Silhouetted heads and windows, here and there and then out of nowhere everywhere, shouting into the slashing black rain. Voices. I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take this anymore. A terrifying thunderclap followed by a fulguration of lightning punctuates the gathering chorus coming from the huddled black border of the city's screaming people, an indistinguishable tidal roar of human rage, as formidable as the thunder rumbling above. It sounds like the Nuremberg rally. Max stands with Caroline at the open terrace window, listening to the stupefying roars and thunder all around him. He closes his eyes, sighs, and there's nothing he can do about it anymore. It's out of his hands. Los Angeles Airport, Wednesday, October 16th. A jumbo 747 touches down at LA Airport. Narrator. By mid-October, the Howard Beale Show had settled in at a 42 share, more than equaling all the other network news shows combined. Diana and Barbara Schlesinger carrying attaché cases, scripts, handbaggage, D-plane. Narrator. In the Nielsen ratings, the Howard Beale Show was listed as the fourth highest rated show of the month, surpassed only by The $6 Million Man, All in the Family, and Phyllis. A phenomenal state of affairs for a news show. West Coast UBS Building Day. A towering glass building on Santa Monica Boulevard. Narrator. And on October the 15th, Diana Christensen flew to Los Angeles. West Coast UBS Building Conference Room. Diana eats sandwiches at a luncheon meeting with her West Coast Programming Department. Narrator. For what the trade calls powwows and confabs with her West Coast programming execs. Glenn Kossoff and Barbara Schlesinger and 3 other men, the Assistant VP Program Development West Coast, head of the Story Department West Coast, and a man from Audience Research, plus another woman in Daytime Programming West Coast, all sit around a room-length mod-shaped conference table. Diana is at a large display board at the far end. This is an improvised programming board. It shows what all 4 networks have on by the half hour for all 7 days of the week. UBS Building West Coast, Diana's office. Diana's behind the desk, with Schlesinger on the couch. Glenn Kossoff ushers in Bill Heron, Laureen Hobbs in an afro and dashiki. With them is Sam Haywood, a shaggy lawyer in the Clarence Darrow tradition with a string tie and folksy drawl. A younger Harvard intellectual lawyer, Mel Grant, and 3 agents from William Morris named Lenny, Wally, and Ed, who are fairly indistinguishable. Diana rises to greet them, extending her hand to Laureen. Diana. Christ, you brought half the William Morris West Coast office with you. I'm Diana Christensen, a racist lackey of the imperialist ruling circles. Laureen. I'm Laureen Hobbs, a badass commie N-bomb. Diana. Sounds like the basis of a firm friendship. DeCossa. We're going to need more chairs. In the background, Schlesinger is exchanging hellos with the agents, one of whom proffers her baby pictures. It's all jolly as hell. Schlesinger. Anybody want coffee? Lenny. Black with sucrol. Kossoff and a secretary are hauling in chairs. Laureen. This is my lawyer, Sam Haywood, and his associate, Mel Grant. Handshakes, nods as they sit and give coffee orders to the secretary. Haywood, an old union lawyer given to peroration. Well, Mrs. Christensen, just what the hell's this all about? Because when a national television network in the person of Bubby here, indicates Heron, comes to me and says he wants to put on the ongoing struggle of the oppressed masses on primetime television, I have to regard this askance. Diana would answer Haywood, but he's just hitting his stride and chairs are brought in. Haywood. I have to figure this is an antithetical distraction. The thesis here, if you follow me, is that the capitalist state is in a terminal condition now, and the antithesis is the maturation of the fascist state. And when the correlative appendages of the fascist state come and say to me they want to give the revolution a weekly hour of primetime television, I've got to figure this is preventative co-optation, right? There are enough chairs now for all to sit. The secretary goes for coffee. A hush follows Haywood's Hegelian instruction. And Diana would again answer, but Haywood is center stage in the full swell of rhetoric. Haywood. The ruling classes are running scared, right? You turn the full force of your Cossack cops and paramilitary organs of repression against us. But now the slave masters hear the rumble of revolution in their ears. So you have no alternative but to co-opt us. Put us on TV and pull our fangs. We're supposed to sell out, right? For your gangster gold? Well, we're not going to sell out, baby. You can take your fascist TV and shove it right up your paramilitary ass. I'm here to tell you we don't sell out. We don't want your gold. We're not going on your TV. A hush descends as everybody digests this opening statement. Diana. Oh shit, Mr. Haywood. If you're not interested in my offer, why the hell did you bring 2 lawyers and 3 agents from William Morris' office along? Grant, what Mr. Haywood was saying, Ms. Christensen, was that our client, Ms. Hobbs, wants it up front that the political content of the show has to be entirely in her control. Diana, she can have it. I don't give a damn about the political content. Lorraine, what kind of show do you have in mind, Diana? Diana, we're interested in doing a weekly dramatic series based on the Ecumenical Liberation Army. And I'll tell you what the first show has to be. A 2-hour special on Marianne Gifford. I'll tell you what I want. I want a lot more film like the bank ripoff of the Ecumenicals sent in. The way I see this series is every week we open with the authentic footage of an act of political terrorism, taken on the spot and in the actual moment. Then we go into the drama behind the opening film footage. That's your job, Mrs. Hobbs. You've got to get the Ecumenicals to bring in that film for us. The network can't deal with them directly. They are, after all, wanted criminals. Lorraine, the Ecumenical Liberation Army is an ultra-left sect creating political confusion with wildcat violence and pseudo-insurrectionary acts, which the Communist Party does not endorse. The American masses are not yet ready for open revolt. We would not want to produce a television show celebrating historically deviational terrorism. Diana, Mrs. Hobbs, Ms. Hobbs, I'm offering you an hour of primetime television every week into which you can stick whatever propaganda you want. Lorraine, the Ecumenicals are an undisciplined ultra-left gang and the leader is an eccentric to say the least. He calls himself the Great Ahmed Khan and wears a hussar's shako. Diana, Ms. Hobbs, we're talking about 30 to 50 million people a shot. That's a lot better than handing out mimeographed pamphlets on ghetto street corners. Lorraine, I'll have to take this matter to the Central Committee, and I better check this out with the Great Ahmed Khan. Diana, I'll be in LA until Saturday, and I'd like to get this thing rolling. An isolated farmhouse in Encino, night. Lorraine Hobbs sits on the stoop talking to another member of the Central Committee, a middle-aged white man named Witherspoon. The door behind them opens and Dowling, a young white man wearing a fatigue jacket and torn Levi's and sunglasses, pokes his head out. Dowling. Okay. Lorraine and Witherspoon rise and follow Dowling into the Ecumenicals' headquarters foyer. Darkness shrouds the shambles of cartons, crates, scraps of food, and litter. Watkins, a young black man in his 30s, stands on the stairway holding an army rifle and follows Lorraine and Witherspoon into the dining room, or what had once served as a dining room. A naked bulb provides light. On a wooden folding chair sits the Great Ahmed Khan, a brooding black man in his 30s. He wears a hussar's shako, and the crescent moon of the Medanites, let me say it right, hangs around his neck. His chair is the only furniture visible in the room. Tattered sleeping bags and newspapers cover the floor, and the walls are bare except for various militant posters of the likes of Mao and Marlon Brando. Boxes of ammunition and grenades and mortar shells are stacked up. In attendance are a young black woman in her early 20s and a young white woman, Mary Ann Gifford, who is a fire-eating militant with a bandolier of cartridges across her torn shirt. Lorraine pulls up an empty crate. Lorraine, well, Ahmed, you ain't gonna believe this, but I'm gonna make a TV star out of you. Just like Archie Bunker. You're gonna be a household word. Ahmed, what the fuck are you talking about? A rataplan of kettle drums and a tarantara of trumpets alerts us to an event. UBS Control Room, Monday, January 27th, 1976. Director. And 1. The show monitor cuts to a beaming announcer. Announcer. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it. How do you feel? The monitor shows the packed audience roaring happily. Audience. We're mad as hell and we're not going to take this anymore. The studio. Announcer, in front of a curtain. Ladies and gentlemen, the network news hour. Cut to the announcer on the control room show monitor. Announcer. With Sybil the soothsayer, Jim Webbing, and his It's the Emmys Truth Department, Miss Matahari and her skeletons in the closet. Tonight, another segment of Vox Populi. And starring music, a flourish of drums. Announcer. The mad prophet of the airways, Howard Beale. Music. A full symphony orchestra soars into an imperial crescendo. The house lights go to black. The curtain slowly rises. A shaft of light emanating from on high shoots down onto the bare stage where only one stained glass window hangs, suspended by wires. Howard Beale struggles on from the wings, looking austere in a black suit and tie. He finds the spotlight and stands shielding his eyes from the blinding light. The audience greets him with tumultuous applause. Howard erupts into a Savonarola-style tirade. Edward George Ruddy died today. Edward George Ruddy was the chairman of the board of the Union Broadcasting Systems, and he died at 11 o'clock this morning of a heart condition. And woe is us, we're in a lot of trouble. So a rich little man with white hair died. What's that got to do with the price of rice, right? Why is that woe to us? Because you and 62 million other Americans are watching me right now, that's why. Because less than 3% of you people read books. Because less than 15% of you read newspapers. Because the only truth you know is what you get over this tube. There is a whole and entire generation right now who never knew anything that didn't come out of this tube. This tube is the gospel. This tube is the ultimate revelation. This tube can make or break presidents, popes, and prime ministers. This tube is the most awesome goddamn force in the whole godless world. And woe is us if it ever falls in the hands of the wrong people. And that's why woe is us that Edward George Ruddy died. Because this network is now in the hands of the CCA, the Communications Corporation of America. We've got a new chairman of the board, a man named Frank Hackett, now sitting in Mr. Ruddy's office on the 20th floor. And when the 12th largest company in the world controls the most awesome goddamn propaganda force in the whole godless world, who knows what shit will be peddled for truth on this tube. So listen to me. Television is not the truth. Television is a goddamned amusement park. Television is a circus, a carnival, a traveling troupe of acrobats and storytellers, singers and dancers, jugglers, sideshow freaks, lion tamers, and football players. We're in the boredom-killing business. If you want the truth, go to God, go to your guru, go to yourself, because it's the only place you'll ever find any real truth. But man, you're never going to get any truth from us. We'll tell you anything you want to hear. We lie like hell. We'll tell you Kojak always gets the killer. Nobody ever gets cancer in Archie Bunker's house. No matter how much trouble the hero is in, don't worry. Just look at your watch. At the end of the hour, he's going to win. We'll tell you any shit you want to hear. We deal in illusion, man. None of it's true. But you people sit there, all of you, day after day and night after night, all ages, colors, creeds. We're all you know. You're beginning to believe this illusion we're spinning here. You're beginning to think the tube is reality and your own lives are unreal. You do whatever the tube tells you. You dress like the tube, you eat like the tube, you raise your children like the tube, you think like the tube. This is mass madness, you maniacs. In God's name, you people are the real thing. We're the illusions. So turn off this goddamn set. Turn it off right now. Turn it off and leave it off. Turn it off right now. Right in the middle of this very sentence I'm speaking now. At which point, Howard Beale's red-eyed rage of prophecy causes him to swoon. He falls.